Bad news.
Bad news for the state.
Bad news for capital.
Bad news for patriarchy.
Bad news for all forms of domination.
Bad news. Angry voices from around the world.
Our monthly info show from anarchist and anti-authoritarian radio projects worldwide.
If these news are bad, I don't want to be good.
Hello and welcome to episode 10 of Bad News, the self-organised monthly anarchist news bulletin featuring angry voices from across the globe. This month's show is produced by Dissident Island Radio in London. On this month's episode, we hear words from A Radio Berlin about repression and torture of anarchists and antifascists in Russia. From Thessaloniki, Radiozones of Subversive expression have updates from Greece covering resistance on the streets and in prisons. The final straw from Asheville in the United States brings us an interview with a participant in the recent 12-day teacher strike in West Virginia. 105 FM on the island of Lesvos come with news from around the North Aegean, including resistance to repression against refugees. From Dissident Island Radio in London, we hear about an ongoing hunger strike at an immigration detention centre and the opening of a squat for homeless people in central London. And finally, Radio Fragmata from Athens have news about fascist attacks on squats in Piraeus and Athens, as well as solidarity actions with a comrade currently on hunger strike in prison. Sprinkled throughout, we have musical interludes featuring tunes from underground UK artists.
Sagen Sie jetzt mal bitte
Anarchie.
Anarchie.
Anarchia.
Ob geschichtlich oder brandaktuell?
Mit Berichten und Interviews, mit Beiträgen und Collagen
Beleuchtet das anarchistische Radio Berlin das Phänomen des Anarchismus.
Viva la anarquía!
This January, the anarchist Black Cross Moscow has posted some shocking news about repressions happening in Russia. They were writing about tortures on anarchists and anti-fascists who were accused of organizing a terrorist network. To understand what is actually going on there, we have interviewed a comrade from Russia who is aware of the situation.
The Russian intelligence agency, FSB, the Federal Security Service, suspects anarchists and anti-fascists of organizing a terrorist network. For now, it is known that 6 people have been arrested in Penza and 2 more in St. Petersburg. All of the arrested have been tortured, under which many of them gave testimonies.
At first, in the beginning of January, people started disappearing in St. Petersburg. They were 3 people: Viktor Filinkov, Igor Shishkin, and Ilya Kapustin. Some of them were arrested after house raids and Filinkov in the airport. Then they were lost for several hours or days. At the same time, an article was published about arrests in Penza in October and November. It became clear that arrests in Penza and St. Petersburg are going according to the same scenario. All of them are taken to somewhere and tortured in order to give testimony that they are part of some terrorist organization. And after this, there was another article published, possibly due to a FSB leaked document, saying that FSB is investigating a case of anarchist terrorist network which wants to establish an anarchist state in Russia.
анархической террористической сети, которая хочет установить анархическое государство в России.
At a time when the news about the persecution of anarchists in St. Petersburg appeared, the guys arrested in Penza had been in detention for 3 months already.
It is known now that arrests in Penza started in the end of October, and at first their case was binded to the nationalistic revolution of Maltsev, which should have happened on November 5th. But now, as far as we understand, it is not mentioned in the case materials. Weapons were planted to some of them, grenades or a pistol. And all of them were heavily tortured with electricity, beating, threatening against their families and themselves, so that all of them were forced to give testimonies about organizing a terrorist network and to give contacts of some other people. This is why the case started in Penza and extended now to St. Petersburg. Moscow and Belarus are also mentioned.
Generally speaking, it looks quite chaotic. It's not clear why this particular people are prosecuted.
The guys who were arrested in Penza were doing airsoft. They were running across the woods with airsoft guns, learned to survive in the woods, to give first aid. Some of them were social activists, and so their contacts were somehow found. Some of them were surveyed and then arrested. And then everything went chaotic. From some arrested people, the phone contacts were taken. Some of them were tortured to give someone else's addresses and names. This led to raids at the other apartments. It all looks like chaos also because people are not really connected to each other. They are from different cities, don't know each other, and see each other's surnames for the first time.
There's more information about the people from St. Petersburg because their relatives have immediately started to contact the human rights organizations. People have immediately started to look for the missing people, and members of the Public Supervisory Commission have started to visit them. There's almost no communication to the relatives and lawyers of guys from Penza. In St. Petersburg, there are simply much more human rights activists and people who can enter prisons and ask about everything.
People were simply arrested somewhere in the street. One was arrested in the airport, another one went for a walk with his dog, another one was at home when police came with a raid. All of them were taken to the woods, beaten up, electric shocker was used on them. And they were forced to learn the testimonies about something they didn't know, that they were members of a terrorist network. They were found in several hours or days after that. The two guys from St. Petersburg that are detained were found in a telegram channel of the St. Petersburg courts. It was written there that they are sentenced to 2 months of preliminary arrest. Members of the Public Supervisory Commission visited them and saw a big number of fresh electric shocker burns on their bodies and lots of hematomes. Now the two people who were tortured in St. Petersburg have filed complaints about tortures, and the third one, Igor Shishkin, seems to be so much threatened that he says that he doesn't remember anything, there were no tortures, and he is not ready for communication.
Yes, you did not misunderstand. The arrested people were tortured to give the testimonies that the Federal Security Service wanted. Russian special agents are extremely skilled at that and had a lot of opportunities to use torture in the past.
What we know about Penza is that people were tortured right in the Remen Center. They were not let to sleep, beaten up, hanged upside down, connected to electricity. Electric wires were connected to their bodies and the electricity was passing through them. And it was repeated until people said that they will sign anything. In St. Petersburg, people were beaten up, tortured with a manual electric shocker into different parts of their bodies, arms, legs, or between the legs. They were threatened that something would happen to their families.
As this criminal case is about a network, it is possible that in some near future there will be more people arrested and accused of terrorism in other Russian cities.
As for now, only people in St. Petersburg and Penza are arrested in relation to this case. I'm saying as for now because Moscow was also mentioned, maybe someone will be arrested in Moscow. There are also a few people in Moscow and Chelyabinsk who were arrested because they might have participated in solidarity actions. There was also a raid at the place of journalist Pavel Nikulin. He held a solidarity action with the guys standing in front of the FSB office. The next day, FSB came to his place. There is no clear information, but we know that there were also raids in some other cities, but people are not ready to talk about it.
It makes sense to ask, why is it happening now? Are there any possible reasons for FSB to become active at this particular moment of time?
It is quite obvious for me that it is related to the upcoming elections, and that is why police must now show that it is allegedly doing something, like preventing possible terrorist attacks before this election because they have some anti-terrorist prophylactic plan. They are also afraid of public actions against the elections in general and against Putin. Because after the 2012 presidential elections, there were huge protests. I think they are afraid of this happening. They are doing everything to make people silent and be mostly busy with saving their friends from prisons and not to go to the street. And the Football World Cup in Russia is also coming, of course. It adds a bit more of intrigue.
You can find more information about the situation on the webpage of Anarchist Black Cross Dresden at abcdd.org. It would also be good to show solidarity with the repressed people.
Of course, we would like everyone who knows how and where to spread the information about this case. It is available in several languages, English, German. There should be also something in Spanish and, of course, in Russian. A good source of information is avtonom.org. We gather material in different languages there. There you can also find information on how to send money if you want to help financially. We call for the people who can go to public actions in front of the Russian embassies and consulates to do so and state there that torture is the thing from the previous century. And it is shocking that they take place.
Даже не прошлый век, это вообще уже средневековье. Никуда не годится.
If you would like to listen to more audios and news from A Radio Berlin, you can visit our website, aradio.blogsport.de.
And check us out on Twitter at aradio_Berlin.
The F2000 rifle is a compact and reliable assault rifle that can be fitted with a wide range of integrated modules or accessories to meet present and future requirements for various types of missions. The F2000 features a bullpup design, which provides the end user with a very compact assault rifle whilst retaining a full-length barrel. As a consequence, the F2000 is always ready to fire. The integration of the grenade launcher onto the F2000 has been developed to retain outstanding ergonomics and balance, as well as smooth contour of the rifle. The user can pull either the rifle or the grenade launcher trigger easily without changing hand position. This ensures easy manipulation, quick aiming, and accurate shooting. Silent Guardian employs millimeter wave technology to repel individuals without causing injury and provides extraordinary tactical ability to control outbreaks of violence and minimize collateral damage. Silent Guardian is designed, developed and manufactured by a Radiozones company. The system is available now and ready for action. Prophets of doom! Prophets of doom! Prophets of doom! They are the prophets of doom! Prophets of doom! Prophets of doom! Prophets of doom! They are the prophets of doom!
Bad news of Radiozones of Subversive expression. Revolt in the prison of Athens for prisoner Giazoglu. The anarchist political prisoner Dinos Giazoglu made a hunger strike from the 21st of February until the 2nd of March, requesting a transfer to the prison in Athens. His stay in the prison of Larissa in central Greece keeps him far from his social environment and his lawyers. In the early hours of Saturday, the 24th of February, special police force invaded his prison cell in Athens, where he was temporarily kept. After beating him, he passed out. Then, they forcefully transferred him back to the prison of Larissa without letting him collect any of his personal belongings and medicines. As an action of solidarity to Dinos Giazoglu, the prisoners set the entire Korydallos prison in Athens in a state of revolt, taking full control of the prison for several hours. The prisoners were supported by a wide solidarity movement which organized a lot of different actions around Greece and abroad. The actions forced the government to change the law, allowing the prisoners to stay in a prison near the court for the entire time they are being judged. Balkan anti-nationalist demonstration. 1 month after the anarchist squad Libertatia in Thessaloniki, North Greece, was burned down by fascists, a Balkan demo of internationalist solidarity against nationalism and fascism took place in the center of the city. There was participation of comrades from Greece and the other countries around the Balkans. The demo intended to pass the message that the oppressed people of Balkans are not enemies of each other, but they share the common destiny set by the state and the capital. This situation can only be changed with common struggles. We won't let our area to be filled on confrontations among NATO, European Union and other smaller powers in the area. The nationalist demo and the hate speeches do not belong in the city of Thessaloniki, a city inhabited for centuries by people with a dozen different languages and cultures. Demonstration against apartment auctions. The Greek government, following instructions of the European Union and the IMF, has recently eased the process with which the banks can confiscate people's apartments because of debts. There is an ongoing movement of people protesting and blocking the entrance of the courthouses where the auctions take place. A violent clash between protesters and police took place on Wednesday, the 8th of March. The protesters were hit by the police and 1 person was injured.
Break our backs, stupidly paying tax. Why should we break our backs, stupidly paying tax? Why should we break our backs, stupidly paying tax? Better get some untaxed income, better pick a pocket or two, you. Better get pick a pocket or, 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 better get
pick a pocket or two. Back in the day I used to jack man to get some food. Late night rides, Victoria, Central Line, searching for some ends meet. No light in my life, accompanied by dark hearts. With a heart of stone, showing no love, expressing a pain. Every time I touch mic, I'm bringing a flame. Candela fuego, this ain't a fuego. Por eso no me dejo change nunca. Plaza el gobierno no está robando el dinero. It's time to claim back what's ours, la tierra. Estoy protestando, movimiento 22. Almas callejeras, nueva era, alongside my brothers and sisters. Start to live revolution, and you will see. It's all in the mind, heart and soul. Por eso yo lo vivo, todo lo que cuento lo he visto. That's why I'll never stop. Power to the people. Power to the people.
Fuck the tax man, drop man a backhand. Tax that, yeah that's right. Now giving cash back to my master. As the whip cracks and we gotta grab faster to get the stacks up, of which they take their batch back. But where's it at? Did you ask that? Or is it better not knowing? This country's investment history is terribly horrid, but to many a mystery, to many forgotten, but to many a misery, to many a profit. Cause what's at the top, they take from the bottom, straight robbing their poverty, picking our pockets, but undercover they are killing with the bombs that we got them. Millions of civilians making millions of dollars. We're lenient if we believe it's not even a problem. I said they're demons, reason I'm willing to stop them.
Don't depend on the system, they depend on we. We are the masses and they are the minority. Refuse to work while they drink tea, collect peas. They got us working the field, this is slavery. And just enough to pay the bills so you stay happy. You wasted 30 years working in the factory. And what you got to show apart from a fat belly, a crackberry and maybe a bog telly. Sign don't smell right, yeah, the stench is heavy. So I feel and fight until my body's dead and buried. All power to the people's primary, not secondary. I bring the scorching heat cause I know it's necessary. And if they could, they'll help us stop us in the penitentiary. It's the truth and they don't want to hear it spreading. I shout it out from London and hope it reaches heaven. And if your body's your temple, I hope it reaches heaven.
So we're joined by Michael, a labor organizer and teacher in West Virginia, to speak about the teacher strike across that state that lasted for 12 days.
I'm a high school teacher in West Virginia. I'm affiliated with the West Virginia Education Association as a building rep, and I do some other work for them. But I'm also in the IWW, and that's primarily where my tendencies in anarchism and libertarian socialism really originate from and help to strengthen those identities.
Can you tell listeners about just sort of what led up to the labor conflict that became a strike initiated on February 22nd?
West Virginia is resource-rich and dirt poor. It's called the resource paradox, and what Emanuel Wallerstein would identify as a peripheral state. There are plenty of natural resources. There were natural resources with the timber industry in the early 1800s that helped to fund large corporations who would extract the natural resources from the state. And then after that was the coal industry, and now we have the natural gas industry. I bring this up because the state of economy for teachers is always dependent upon the state of economy for West Virginia itself. Teachers in this state have been dealing with declining budgets for public services pretty much since the mid-90s. The thing that's really started this whole thing was the fact that our health insurance was set to get even worse than it was before. We were set to go from an 80-20 percentage where the state picks up 80% and we pay 20% of medical bills to a 60-40. And this was the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of public employees who said, you know, we're working 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And now you're expecting us to do even more to pick up the slack for the fact that we have a declining tax base to pay for these public services. We felt that our unions and our associations who we were expecting to represent us were simply there to be a front for these large pro-business Democrats, but there really didn't seem like there was any group fighting for us except for our fellow teachers. This was essentially a powder keg that was waiting for something to set it off, and I would say our healthcare crisis was what really did us in.
Do you think something about the who's currently in charge of the federal administration had something to do with it too?
West Virginia is unique in the sense that we have been a reliably blue Democratic state pretty much up to the 2000s for the presidential elections and until like very recently, the past few years in the state legislature. So the fact that we've not really had any effective leadership from either political party has shown us that the political parties in power are really only there to represent themselves.
Can you talk a little bit about how the strike got implemented and how it shifted as the union's position shifted in the relationship with the government?
Well, when we implemented the strike, it was this weird symbiosis of union leadership combined with rank-and-file members, and it sort of went like this. Over the summer and early fall, we started working on a plan to have a massive rally in the state's capital on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Eventually, someone basically ratted us out, but by the time that they had done that, we were already so well organized that they realized they couldn't stop this. So what happened after November was union leadership started helping set up basic coordination efforts. And that worked in the beginning. And initially, union leadership had called for statewide action for a 2-day walkout in mid-February. This were a Thursday and Friday walkout. We had prepared for that walkout. After that, however, union leadership had to meet with the governor and come to an agreement. They eventually agreed to a 5% raise based on Governor Justice's assessment of the situation. However, after they made that announcement, what turned it into a wildcat strike was the fact that teachers and community leaders across the state realized that the Republican Senate could not be trusted until a deal was signed into law. So the community leaders decided we're staying on strike, we're not going back, and they forced leadership's hand to support us as we continued on with the strike.
A lot of states in the South tend to be right-to-work states. Can you talk about what that means and how the existent mainstream unions survive and operate under that regime?
I would say right-to-work is a brilliant reactionary ploy to divide the working class. In West Virginia, the way it works with right-to-work in this state, and it was only recently passed, was they can't have closed union shops. So you can't require someone to have union membership as a condition for employment in a store or in the public workplace. But the problem is, because of right to work, that means there becomes a free rider problem. So fewer and fewer people are going to pay union dues, but they're more and more likely to receive union benefits. And because no one wants to spend a few $100s on union dues, they are going to opt out of those union contracts and still receive the benefits from their primary unions. So in West Virginia, we have had to find a way to organize without the benefit of collective bargaining, without the benefit of strong unions in the state. The unions can be a valuable tool for injecting our radical discourse. We realize, we don't need these large business unions to fight our battles. We need them currently to serve as figureheads for a larger cause, and we might need them for statewide organization efforts that legally we might not be able to engage in.
Can you talk a little bit about the IWW's model and method and what it means to be dual membership?
Currently in West Virginia, because we have so few members in the IWW, it makes sense to be a dual carder. The industrial workers of the world. It's a horizontal leadership model in the sense that there's not one direct leader calling the shots. We work based on an industrial union model. We organize people based on the working class. And anecdotally, from teachers I was speaking with, were upset that we had to organize based on a business union model. We had to organize based on our different sectors of employment. And we had a whole variation of unions who might be sympathetic or supportive to us, but they weren't on strike. They had to support us from a distance. What we're witnessing in this state is
by organizing through an industrial union model, we could actually strike more effectively. We could shut down highway management. We could shut down school systems. We could shut down, I don't know how dangerous it would be, but it's a possibility, emergency services. That when people realize that, if you're going to have an entire sector of employment that is completely underfunded, understaffed, overworked, with longer hours and poorer benefits, then calling for a general strike to demand greater action might have to be the way to go.
Can you talk a little bit about how the strike ended?
Capitalism won in the sense that there was no natural gas severance tax to fund long-term proposals for our health insurance. There was a bill that was put up that would allow natural gas industries to essentially gobble up private property rights if 75% of the landowners in that area agreed to sell off their land to these companies. So if you're a small landowner in southern West Virginia and you're in poverty, you're incentivized to sell off your land to these large corporations who are going to make billions of dollars in profits off of your land. And if your neighbor decides they don't want to sell their land, well, under this new law, they essentially don't have a choice. So the strike ended. We're happy to be back. We're happy that we won this gain, but we're also cautious to celebrate this as a total victory because we know that the fight really has only begun.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say to the audience before we sign off?
If you're interested in participating in what's being called #General Strike 2018, feel free to message me on Facebook. I run the West Virginia IWW Facebook page. We're always looking to reach out to people across the country who are interested in these actions. And if you are wondering how West Virginia strike went down, and if you want some information, we're always happy to help. We want the strikes to spread. We want capitalism to realize that this is labor's final reckoning with it.
Every now and then I meet someone, some boring little bastard like you, somebody engaging in one-upmanship who thinks he's got a point to prove. And you're more punk than me. You really want everyone to see that you're more punk than me. I didn't realise it was a hierarchy. I thought the whole point was being yourself, but you bought your punk identity off a shelf. And you're more punk than me. You're way more punk than me. You've got more tattoos. You're drinking a lot more booze. You're way more punk than me. You can't wait to tell everybody. Well, good for you, mate, I'm glad you're punk. Good for you, mate, I'm glad you're drunk. But why the fuck you hanging round me? If you're so much more punk than me, why are you trying to tell me what a punk rocker's supposed to be? Surely that's your own choice, and it's got fuck all to do with me. And I'm not as punk as you. I don't do the punk things that you do. I just get on with being myself. I'm quite happy doing that for now, cause I don't know how to be a punk. I didn't read the instruction book like you, and it's been a good long while since I took speed or sniffed any glue. I'm not punk enough for you, but I didn't realise it was you I was cowing down to. Go ahead and be more punk than me. Go ahead and be more punk than me. I don't give a fuck if you're more punk than me, cause you're just fucking wanting to be. You're just a wannabe. You're trying to get on top of me. But if it comes down to it at the end of the night, I'll still be standing and I'll be alright, cause I'm not punk at all. For your opinion, I don't care, fuck all!
You're listening to 105 FM.
the independent, self-organized radio station of Mytilene at Lesvos Island.
It's the melody of rage that unites us.
Bad News 105 FM, February 2018. Hello, comrades. This is the broadcast of counter-information of the self-organized independent radio station of Mytilene, Lesvos Island, 105 FM. We will inform you about local news from Lesvos that occurred during the month of February. We will discuss about the refugees concentration camp conditions in Moria, the case of the father raping his daughter in Thermi, the case of the 35 refugees in Moria, damages at the detention center, the case of the 3 refugees imprisoned for animal theft and the responsibility claim for the damages in Syriza's offices in Mytilene.
50 years prison sentence was the decision of the Northwest Assize Court in Hughes Island for the father who sexually assaulted his daughter, and 12 years for the mother. According to the indictment, the mother was aware of her child abuse.
On the 18th of July 2017, prisoners in Moria held a peaceful protest outside of European Asylum Support Office. Their demand was simple: freedom of movement for everyone who was trapped on the island for more than 6 months. All of the 35 people arrested and accused of crimes seems to be chosen out of coincidence. Many of the 35 were not even present at the protest. 34 of the 35 men arrested are black, leading us to the conclude that arrests were racially profiled. Although 30 of them were detained under full uncertainty in 4 prisons. 3 of the NGOs that initially promised legal defense have abandoned them with pretentious excuses.
According to the UN report of 9th February 2018, including sexual harassment against refugees, it was noted that out of the 622 incidents in 2017, 1/3 concerned to be remaining in detention centers in Greece, and in particular detention centers of North Aegean. It should be noted that the real number was expected to be higher if we consider that refugees don't always talk about these incidents. Also, a similar report of the International Amnesty on Human Rights in the concentration camps in Greece that took place on 22 of February of 2018 focused on the miserable and unsafe conditions, particularly in the reception areas in Greece. In a forced labor case, such as the Manila, and finally in the racist attacks organized by extremist organizations led by the neo-Nazi Golden Dawn.
Dinos Giadzoglu is imprisoned since 28th of October with the accusation of being involved in terrorist attacks. In the 22nd of February, he started hunger strike, while in the 25th of February, he started third strike too. His request was to be transferred to the Central Prison of Greece, Korydallos, which was accepted in the end. Due to that fact, a group of anarchists in Mytilene threw paints at the offices of the governmental party of Syriza as a sign of solidarity to Dinos.
3 refugees from Eritrea is temporarily imprisoned at Chios prison. They're accused of animal theft, and one of them got shot by a breeder whose farm was nearby. The 3 refugees turned out by the legal procedure to be Christians who were in the area to pray to the nearby church, which had been granted them in order to conduct their worship purposes. The breeder was set free with the charges of gun possession and gun use, although the police found 4 hunting guns, 1 pistol, 2 wooden bats, and many bullets in his car. We're talking about another incident which shows that the state justice is like a snake. It bites only the barefoot.
I wake up and make love to hardship. Pain comes and passes. I dance with its carcass. I taste blood, gargle it and pass it. The same savage cycle I was born into the casket. We got a line for arms higher, make you lift your arms higher. Hotbeds, car fire, kids skip with barbed wire. Love suppressed, mum's depressed, curtain shut, stuck in bed, counting out the pennies just to buy a loaf of fucking bread. My father left his kids to die, he kissed us by and wished us well. He went to live a richer life, his kids survived but live in hell. Love's become another myth, this is just a different world. With girls who wanna kiss the guys, but guys are gonna kiss in jail. Deadlock, wedlock, prison is a privilege. When inside you're fed lots, but outside you're nibbling. It's poverty, there's lots to feed me, I haven't got the pee. It's a war, I'm living poor.
We're the ones who give sweat and blood. We're the ones who don't get enough. We're the ones who could say to love.
Who built Britain? Us the workers. Who are they sticking? Us the workers. Who are they killing? Us the workers. Now I'm here singing out, up the workers, up the hooligans, up the workers, up the services, up the nurses. Matey, they need us the workers. Without us, they're fucking worthless. And I work hard, killing myself in the work yard, but I can never make rent, which never makes sense when the boss man's travelling first class. But I'm the one who comes to work, and I'm the one who does the work, and we're the ones who create the value, and we're the ones who suffer the worst. Bun work if it means I'm getting ripped off, getting left to die by a big boss, getting bled dry by a shit job, getting bread, boy I'm getting pissed off. We're the ones who made the money, we're the ones who made them fat, we're the ones who run the country, and we're the ones who can take it back. It's war now, I'm worn out, can't do it anymore, let's walk out. Fuck your boss, bruv, stuff the lot, cause I ain't gonna be hoard out. Pay the minimum wage if we can't afford the rent, gotta call a friend. How can I work 5 days a week, so when it gets to payday I'm poor again. I wanna war with them, let's wild out, make the boss take a time out. What would they do if we strike out? Let's try it now, we'll find out. We're the ones who made the money, we're the ones who made them fat, we're the ones who run the country, we're the ones who can take it back.
We're the ones who give sweat and blood. We're the ones who don't get enough. We're the ones who could say to love.
Who built Britain? Us the workers. Who are they sticking? Us the workers. Who are they killing? Us the workers. Now I'm here singing out, up the workers, up the hooligans, up the workers, up the services, up the nurses. Matey, they need us the workers. Without us, they're fucking worthless.
We're the ones who give sweat and blood. We're the ones who don't get enough. We're the ones who could say to love.
Who built Britain? Us the workers. Who are they sticking? Us the workers. Who are they killing? Us the workers. Now I'm here singing out, up the workers, up the hooligans, up the workers, up the services, up the nurses. Matey, they need us the workers. Without us, they're fucking worthless.
Can I tell you? 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's really weird, the signals. Where's the volume button?
I'm sitting on the heater.
We'll probably start from just a very general.
Blah, 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 blah.
Who are you?
Blah, blah, blah.
What do you do?
Blah, blah, blah.
How does it work? Kind of thing.
It's very cold.
Some nice little things there.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Let's all be friends.
From London this month, Dissident Island brings you clips from 2 recent interviews we had on the show. First, we'll hear from a detainee held at Yarl's Wood Women's Detention Centre about their ongoing strike against indefinite detention. After that, we'll hear from the newly squatted Sophia House, a solidarity centre occupied in Parliament's own borough of Westminster, to get street sleepers out of the snow.
So just to give a bit of an update, obviously Yarl's Wood is a detention centre in Bedfordshire in England. It's an all-women's detention centre. Detainees have been on hunger strikes over the past week. They have announced we will cease to participate in detention. We will not eat, use their facilities or work for them. Uniquely in Europe, the UK has no specified legal limit for detention. Many detainees are held for months or years with no release date. The hunger strike and protests are taking place to demand an end to indefinite detention, separation of families and mistreatment at the detention centres, which in this case is run by the firm Serco on behalf of the Home Office. They were caught up with one of the detainees earlier in the week. So I'm here talking to one of the hunger strikers. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So this hunger strike has been going on for, it's in its 7th day now, I believe. Is that right?
No, let me clarify, okay? Last week we did just a normal hunger strike. We told the Home Office we were going to do it. We said it would be for 3 days. So basically, after the 3 days, they didn't address our issues. They refused to even admit that there was a hunger strike going on. So we got a core group of activists in here, got more organised, because we have time on our hands and we share this experience of oppression in here. Our liberty is taken from us. We don't know when until, we don't know when we're going, we don't know where we're going. We're at the mercy of this almighty power, and basically we just want to take our voice back. And the fact that they was even denying there was a hunger strike, that really upset a few of us. So this time we're not eating, we're not drinking, and we're not working, we're not using any of their facilities, we're just refusing to participate in detention. So now we started a new hunger strike, and this one is going to run indefinitely. We've not given them any time as to when it would end. We've given them the list of changes that we want or issues that need addressing. So we're just striking. A lot of the ladies, there's a core group of 18 ladies and 7 men, because they hold men here as well on the family unit. They're a lot more restricted. They have to stay just in one unit all day. They only get to come out to go to the gym for an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, and they get to go to the library for half an hour. And I mean, like I said, you can put a gym in here, but a cage is still a cage. We're still locked in here. I'd rather have my liberty, or give me a date when you're going to liberate me, or do something with my case. That just don't leave people here in this indefinite psychological hell.
Had the strike been planned among the detainees beforehand? I mean, there has been a figure quoted of 120, which is quite substantial.
Yeah, initially, for the 3-day strike, that's how many people took part in the 3-day strike, yeah. But because during that strike, the officers were going around and basically just scaring people and saying things like, oh, you don't want this to affect your case, and think about yourself and all that. And you've got to understand, these people are oppressed. They're already scared anyway. So that got to a lot of people. But there's, like I said, there's in the sittings, today, there's been over 20 people. There are people who support us, but they don't come in the sitting. There's people that are not eating. There's about 40 people not eating and not drinking. We just have to stay strong. The anger, the injustice, I feel that's feeding me right now. That's the only thing I'm operating on, is the anger at the injustice that we feel. Today has been especially hard. We feel targeted. We feel targeted today. I know that's because maybe we're making ourselves more visible. I understand that.
Is there sufficient medical care available to detainees, particularly those on hunger strike?
The thing I've noticed, personally, I feel like they don't see a person anymore. They just hear an accent and they don't see a person. They see a problem, somebody that they're struggling to communicate with, and there's no human care, They tell you how you're feeling. They tell you what you need, and that's it. People who have treatment plans outside, people with severe conditions, they get detained and their care plans are no longer in place. There's people that miss operations and then just take painkillers for issues that are just gradually getting worse and worse. There's transgender people here who have hormone injections outside and they don't get them here, and they start feeling, how can I say, they don't like themselves anymore. Physically, they don't feel good.
So the legal limit being 28 days in detention, to your knowledge, to what extent is that being breached?
Patrick, I've been here 3 months. That's not the longest. That's a relatively short stay. I know one lady who has a husband here, right, and she's been here now 14 months. Yet sometimes some people are detained and they are let out before they even have a bail hearing. Like, so I don't understand, and now I start to look at this like, that's suspiciously. I'm like, do they just detain people with no grounds just to release them so they can say, oh, well, most people are only here for a week or whatever, because that's not the case. That is not the case. And the thing is, the detention, whether it's for 28 days or whether it's for 28 months, we don't know, because it's indefinite. It is indefinite. And I can't tell you how much pressure that puts on people, the uncertainty of life, like where your life is, that puts so much pressure on people.
Yesterday, the strike entered a new phase of including a work strike. Is that correct?
Yeah, morally, this really upsets me, because they won't give us work permits to go work, try and earn a living wage and pay taxes. But in here, they expect you to work for £1 an hour to help run the centre. And it's not forced. You don't have to work. However, the people that do tend to do these jobs are the people that have either been here so long that they're running out of things to do, or they are so desperate because they don't have support outside and they want to afford the few comforts that you get here. And they're doing jobs like showing new detainees around, showing them how to do things and how to get things done and whatever. And then there's people who work in the kitchens and there's people who clean. So we think that these jobs are really essential to the running of the centre. So why are they paying detainees £1 an hour to aid and participate in their own detention?
Thanks a lot for talking to us. It's been very informative to hear what's been happening. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
The Yarlswood hunger strike has lasted 3 weeks so far and is still going strong. To follow updates from the strikers, check out detainedvoices.com or follow #ShutYarlswood on Twitter. Next, we'll hear from Sophia House, an autonomous space for the winter homeless, where squatting crews have over this past week been sharing practical squatting skills to empower those fucked over in the housing crisis to take up more space.
So we're on the phone now with John from Streets Kitchen, and you've been involved with the Sophia Street Solidarity Centre, which has just opened up. Do you want to tell people what it is and what's going on there?
Basically, there's a dire need for more buildings to be opened up for homeless people. So we were in partnership with a number of other people. We took the building. It's a big, large, 6-storey building. The plan is I would like to house 200 people in there. We could run a homeless shelter of 200 people, but we're going to need people. We're going to need people to come and help us, to get involved, to volunteer, just to come and do a shift, hang out, talk to people, especially in this weather. It's to highlight the empty buildings. I mean, there's no point talking to you about empty buildings and the rights and wrongs of empty buildings, but it's a bit like Streets Kitchen itself. It's very simple to do. What we do, go out and feed. It's actually very easy to take buildings too, and that's a simple answer to housing people in a housing crisis. So that's what's going on at the moment. We're holding the space well. People have been very good to us. We've had lots of donations. We've got camp beds sent to us, sleeping bags, food. People have been very good that way. We've got a big free shop set up. Tomorrow we're going to shout at Downing Street for a wee while. We have a protest at 3 o'clock for no more deaths in our streets. But the core object for that is to actually protesting is not going to do a pile. Walking A to B is not going to do a pile. We want people to bring stuff down to us, like sleeping bags, things that will keep people alive. You know what I mean? If we cause mayhem through the city distributing that stuff, so be it. We want to get stuff to where it needs to be. So the building's going well. We're there 24/7. Just drop by.
How is it Westminster Council that are?
We're down in nasty Westminster.
And have they been helpful? Well, have they been trying to obstruct you, or
they tried to take the credit for it at first, and they noticed it wasn't one of their shelters because they don't have very many of us, and they're very embarrassed. They had to say they'd made a mistake because it's not. Westminster's one of the worst councils. They didn't try to ban us off the streets, but 4 or 5 years ago they tried to stop street kitchens operating on the streets. That wasn't just us. That was every street kitchen. They didn't want us on the streets because we were encouraging homeless people. Everybody wanted to be homeless to eat pret-a-manger sandwiches, Westminster is a torture, and we're right in the heart of the beast. We'll go and give whoever you call her in Downing Street a big shout at her. We're going to house people in Westminster. We'll do their job for them, and we'll not ask for one penny. We're not poverty pimps. We'll not have a GoFundMe, go fund my lifestyle, bollock stuff about it. If people drop us a few quid, it'll be shown. We'll buy stuff with it, but we don't really want money. We want people's time. And I seriously think we could actually set up the largest hostel in London of 200 people if we could get a big enough crew. So if you're part of our squatting crew, let's beat the beast. That snow's killing our people out there, and it is our people down out there in them streets. It's not the rich are down in them streets.
So it is very cold at the minute. It's snowing. The weather's shite out there. But is this a long-term prospect, or is this just a kind of a stopgap for when the weather's really bad?
We would like to stay there for as long as we could. If we could hold that space, we would keep that space, If they kick us out, the way things are going at the moment, we're just going to have to take another building. But we'll take the buildings because people need to get beds. People need to get help. People need a bit of community about it. But it's what we've been talking about for years, but we're putting it into action, and it has to be put into action. We need more of these buildings done. That's cracked a lot.
Absolutely, John, absolutely. All right, well, thanks a lot for joining us and giving us your time, and keep up the good work, man. It's completely admirable.
No problem. Thank you. We need to get the message out there, and hopefully a few of your listeners might come out and join us. Let's hope. Solidarity, not charity.
You can find out more about the Sophia House Solidarity Centre and ongoing Solidarity Not Charity work with the street homeless in London by following #NoMoreDeathsOnOurStreets or following Streets Kitchen, both on Twitter. You can also find the full interviews from both projects on the Dissident Island website. That's dissidentisland.org, show 209.
You're listening to Dissident Island Radio. Oh, yeah. www.dissidentisland.org.
Hello, this is bad news from the anarchist anti-authoritarian web radio Radiofragmata from Athens, Greece. We will first talk about the fascist attacks on the free social space of Favela in Piraeus and the Panetoliou 21 squad in Koukaki. On 25th of February, an attack was carried out by Golden Dawn at the free social space of Favela in Piraeus, during which 5 comrades were injured and damages were caused inside the building. The fascists of Golden Dawn attacked at the time of the planned and announced public assembly, wearing helmets and armed with foldable blackjacks, iron bars, at least 1 metal sharp object and 3 torches. They beat anyone who was in their path. The place was on fire and several objects were burned. One of them struck Eleftheria Tobajoglou on the head when she attempted to open the window and caused her severe craniocerebral injury. Another woman also has stitches and others had burns by the torches. The attack lasted about 1 to 2 minutes and their leader could the end time, also known by other recorded attacks of the raid battalions. The fascists then resigned while repeating the slogan "Blood, Honor, Golden Dawn." The next day, on 26th of February, fascists attacked the Panetoliou 21 squad in Koukaki, Athens. They attempted to open a window and set fire. Eventually, they put gas and fire at the entrance of the building without any success. They passed on a motorcycle again and threw a brick on the safekeeping comrades, which chased them. Shortly after the attack by the fascists and while comrades guarded the squad inside and on the street, 2 police vehicles stopped in front of the building and one of the cops threatened the occupants with a gun. They left very soon. We continue with the anarchist hunger-thirst striker Dinos Yadzoglou and actions of solidarity. On 24th of February at dawn at 6:30, armed police battalions invaded in A wing of Korydallos prison and kidnapped the hunger striker Konstantinos Yadzoglou from his cell, transporting him to the Larissa prison. Yadzoglou was already on the 3rd day of hunger strike, demanding his permanent transfer from the Larissa prison to Korydallos. He resisted and was beaten by the cops, who picked him up from his cell without letting him get his stuff, not even allowed him to wear his shoes. On the same day, a revolt happened in male and female wing of Korydallos prison and in Chania and Malandrinos prisons, while a solidarity intervention outside of the Ministry of Justice was carried out by comrades, which was brutally hit by the police and 4 arrests occurred. On 25th of February, Konstantinos Giazoglu begins the third strike as an extra pressure to satisfy his request for transportation in Korydallos prison. At the same day, an interference with banners, tricks and slogans took place outside the home of Lukas Papadimos, a technocrat and banker who served as Prime Minister in 2011. On 26th of February, the occupation of the deanship in Athens took place, which lasted 5 days. At the dawn of the same day, there was an attack with a grenade in Kessarianis Police Department. Same day, an irresponsibility assumption for 5 incendiary attacks, one in clothing store owned by well-known political figures, 2 in fascist vehicles, 1 in diplomatic vehicle, and 1 in a TV station owned by a far-right politician was published. On 27th of February at dawn, an attack with hammers at the bank in the area of Ellinikon took place. During the day, a solidarity demonstration of 150 people took place to the offices of the government that ended well. In the night, there happened an attack to the city center on a well-known commercial street where commercial shops were destroyed. On 28th of February at dawn, a second attack with hammers took place in a bank in the area of Glyfada. A symbolic occupation at the government's newspaper offices occurred, which ended well on the same day. At noon, Konstantinos Giazoglu is hurriedly transferred to the hospital of Larissa after a faint episode. Later, there was an attack at the office of a criminology professor at Pantheon University. In the evening, there happened a successful speech blockade of the Speaker of Parliament in a central hotel in Athens. The speech did not happen and the comrades stayed for 1.5 hours and left without a problem. At the end of the day, there was an attack with Molotov bombs to the private security company G4S, which cooperates closely with states of many countries on security issues while supplying Hellenic police with communication systems. On 1st of March, there were attacks on cops in Exarchia with stones, flares and Molotov bombs, incendiary attack on a bank branch, intervention with banners and slogans by 15 people outside the home of the General Secretary of the Ministry of Justice, Eftichi Fitraki, which is the main responsible for the decision to transfer Giazoglu from Larissa to Korydallos. On 2nd of March, attack to a bank and damages were caused by heavy weights on the side face. At dawn, attack on Starbucks and a branch of Hellenic post offices at central locations in the city. Finally, the hunger and thirst strike of Comrade Konstantinos Giazoglu ended when his transfer from Larissa to Korydallos was decided for the 10th of April. During these days, plenty of solidarity acts took place all over Greece.